Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's guest, longtime friend and brother, Ben Owen. Ben, welcome to the show, brother.
Happy to be here.
So I've been waiting for a long time to talk about Ben and his philanthropic program that he started about 5 years ago. It's Owen Invitational. It's a 2-on-2 elite basketball tournament up in North Jersey, and it's really starting to gain national attention. And I had to say, I was so proud of him, and I always lead with that when I send him a text when it's coming around that time. The effort, it's unsolicited. He doesn't ask for anything. He does it all from the heart, and these kids really love him. And so I thought it was something that I really wanted to bring to, my audience and the nation, and how special I thought it was. So, Ben, with that being said, tell us a little bit about where Owen Invitational started.
John, it started in my backyard. I started the tournament, as you know, because of my son. We were doing small little tournaments with just him and his friends, group of friends, like every year. And finally, after about him winning it 2 years in a row, I was like, listen, why don't we make it competitive if I'm going to spend a little time and effort into this and a little bit of money as well. We were getting T-shirts and banners and stuff like that. So I said, why don't we make it a little competitive and do it with the kids that you actually train with at a high level and you actually play AAU basketball with. So we did it 1 year in my backyard. I have a half court in my backyard. We started out with 8 teams, and it was all the kids that my son trained with, played AAU with, and it was also a couple of the trainers that helped me start this thing and recruit those kids as well. That was the whole premises of it, and then it just blew up into something, that I could never possibly imagine it would have, and we started holding it at venues. The following year, we did it at Roselle Catholic. 2 years after that, Roselle Catholic, and this past year, we did it at Rawway Rec Center.
I love that. It's funny to the audience that don't realize, we're like brothers. We've known each other for more years than we've been, 30 plus years.
Let's not say too many years.
I don't want to age us, but a long time. But I have to say, the home, obviously that was special, but you probably have $80,000 to $100,000 into this thing. And, again, not for profit, not for clout, but for the young men. And I see the responses, and I've met some of the dads and these young men talk about you when I've had the opportunity to attend. And it's something really special. There's not a lot of people out there that do that kind of thing. And I've said to you, because again, as a basketball trainer for 20 plus years, I was around the guys that were in it for the take, and they were getting paid in every direction, to send players to recruit and whatever it was. And so when you told me that, I was genuinely intrigued, and I wanted to have that conversation because, I told you, I was like, I've never seen it done so honestly, in truth.
Well, when I first did it in the backyard, I made it like a family type event. And I made the Owen Invitational brand over the past 5 years like a family. Like anybody that's ever played in my tournament will always be under the Owen Invitational umbrella family. So what I did was I made it so that I didn't want to monetize it. And even though I hold it at venues, I don't even charge admission at the door.
But let me interrupt you. But we are looking for sponsors, guys. This is an amazing cause. These are nationally ranked players looking to elevate their game and get to the next level for school, for funding, and be student athletes. So trust me, if you're out there and you love basketball as much as the two of us, we are looking for sponsors.
Definitely looking for sponsors, yes. Not for me. Not for my own personal gain of money or financial reasons.
It's a lot of costs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a lot of costs. Like this year, we gave out $5,000 in NIL money. Obviously, this year was the first year I actually started my non-for-profit, Own Invitational non-for-profit company. And it was just through one donor actually donated a couple $1,000, Continental Home Group, I got to mention them. And then everything else came from my business itself. We did 467 people this year in the building at Rawway Rec Center, in and out throughout the whole day. And we didn't charge $1. We don't get any piece of the food vendor that's outside in the front. I pay for everything out of pocket. It's definitely a not-for-profit organization, that's for sure.
I'll never forget it. When I got to prep school, you couldn't hide playing 2-on-2.
No.
And I love that you picked that. What was your rationale versus going, 5-on-5? Why'd you grab 2-on-2 for these kids?
Well, I was always a half-court player myself. I always loved playing half-court basketball. 2-on-2, 3-on-3. It's a funny story. White Man Can't Jump was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid with Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. And that whole movie was based on a 2-on-2 competition. Winners get $5,000 at the end of the movie. And, me and you, we grew up in the parks in our early 20s playing all the time half-court. So that was my favorite thing. And plus, with the 2-on-2, like you said, you can't hide behind 3 other players. 4 other players. You got to have a bag to come into this tournament. And that's why I think a lot of kids, some of the higher level kids don't come into this tournament because they will get, embarrassed
exposed.
They will get exposed,
Let's talk player impact. What have you seen with these young men. And I'll give you my story from the young man that I saw, the father at Powerhouse. And he was beyond honored to have you bring his son in to play with those other special players. What have you seen from confidence-wise, leadership-wise, and even exposure-wise with regards to putting this out there in these high-profile settings?
Just to mention that, you're talking about Riley Gorman's dad. Great guy. I love that the appreciation that these kids have for what we do. And it's not just me. I started this in my backyard, but I also had the help of Al Fatir, my son's first trainer, Jamar Wise, who's an assistant coach for Roselle Catholic, Darryl Lampley, who's assistant coach for Elizabeth High School. Also now, as it got bigger, we had to take on a couple other gentlemen. We have Pop, who handles all the security. We have Big Serge Wilcher, who's Simeon Wilcher's father, who plays in Texas. He's highly involved in recruiting. We also have all the coaches from all the high schools in the counties. Mike Gordon, Phil Colicchio, Gabe from East Orange High School. Everybody's involved now. And it's great because that shows me the appreciation that they have. And the kids now, I had to turn down 150 kids this past tournament. 150 kids almost.
Amazing.
I had to turn down.
It's almost like a lottery now.
Because it's only 16 teams, 32 kids, and it's all day event. It's a one day event. So I can't please everybody, and it upsets me that I can't do that. But at the same time, it's the best of the best.
It's funny. I said it to you. Of course, I take the big brother role, as always with you. Let's be real. Most people wouldn't put their money up. What keeps you going with this? As opposed to somebody doing it one time, they get a little exposure and they walk away from it. What keeps you going, Ben?
It's funny you say that. It's a funny story. 2 years ago, the father, Carl Holman, Jaden Holman's father, we talk back and forth, and he texts me, he calls me, and he says, "Who's Dante playing with?" Dante's my son, the reason why I started it. And I said, "Dante doesn't want to play in it this year." And he's like, "Why not?" And I said, "I don't know. He just, he doesn't want to play. He wants to focus on his MMA or whatever it was." And he said, "So why are you doing it?" And I said, "I'm not going to stop now just because my son stopped. I do it because I love it. I love doing this for the kids. I love, some of these kids actually call me uncle. I'm like an uncle to them in a way. I developed relationships with their parents, themselves. Like I mentioned, Jalen Maldonado. I mean, I literally talk to him almost every other day. He's a guard at Elizabeth High School, and I developed a great relationship with his father. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with him right before I walked into this interview. He was going to actually come with me, but he was sick. I mean, it's just the relationships that I build with these kids, and every year they look forward to it. Every single year. I talk to these kids on a daily basis. I text them, I promote them, I repost their stuff. I literally, out of my own pocket, send my camera guy to go and make film for them and highlight videos. I've helped kids get recruited to college. It's just a personal satisfaction for me is why I keep doing it.
I love that. Saw hidden lessons. What lessons are these young men learning in this environment that they may not be learning in AAU? I know that the last 5 years for me, and I've had my share of elite players, a National Player of the Year, Duke, Tennessee, UConn. I mean, I've trained some special players. You work with these kids, hosting them, sponsoring them, mentoring them. What do you feel like you're bringing to the table with them, other than they're authentic? I mean, this just sounds so genuinely real.
Well, I mean, what I bring to the table in general is exposure for them, and some exposure to some of the kids that wouldn't get the exposure, because we have high major Division I kids in our tournament, and we have Division III kids in our tournament, and sometimes those Division III kids could be Division I kids. A name that pops into my mind is Christian Nicholson, who went to Montclair State this year. They're number one in the country for Division III, and he's a large part of that.
He's a killer, right?
Yeah. They're I think they're 29-0 or something like that. I just texted him the other day, but because he's smaller guard, he didn't get the recognition. But I give players like that a platform where they can actually showcase their skills. And I get them into different tournaments too, because I have people that run these.
You got clout now.
Yeah,
right?
I have people that run these tournaments, and they're like, "Can you call this kid for me? Can you call this kid? How's this person's parents?" I've had meetings in my house with high school coaches to get some of my kids to go to their school.
I love it. Again, the theme of this podcast is tough love, and sometimes these young kids, I've seen it with my son playing baseball at elite level, being down at IMG. Did you have to give any of the kids there in the past a reality check?
Yeah.
Meaning like what tough love looks like in the real world?
Yeah.
We don't put anybody on blast and call out names.
No, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I've been real with people and told them that this is the level that you should be playing at now. You could get to a different level if you work hard. I keep it real with them. A lot of these coaches, the ones that I have personal relationships with, a lot of these coaches don't keep it real because they need them right then and there for that specific instance. There's a lot of coaches that keep kids at their schools because they need them right then and there.
Yeah.
And they're not honest with them. And they're not
Agreed.
going to say, hey, listen, it'd be better if you went to a different school because I'm only going to play you for 3 or 4 games.
Leveraging them.
Yeah.
I agree.
Until these guys get off their 30-day suspension for transferring.
You know, it was funny. When I was really heavy into the training, I remember a few schools that did that. And when you establish a trust like both of us had with the kids and the parents, I shut those schools down. And I felt bad. Like I literally shut down their recruiting because to me, it was always about the kid. And I think, selfishly, in my playing career, the coaches back then didn't know any better, right? It was just they put you in a role. You were big, you played big. If you were small, you played small. If you played softball with the kid's dad, you played the whole game.
And you have those instances as well. If you're friends with the kid's uncle who brought you to the school, then you're never gonna get taken out, even though you have 11 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah, you're always gonna see that. And when I got into training, I started with a mentor of mine, Coach Tony Sagona, who I love to this day, talked to me the other day. What's up, Coach? And, Gones had the best of the best when we were growing up. I mean, Keith Karowski, trying to think, Troy Murphy, Matt Carroll, Pat Carroll. You see Kyle, I can't remember Kyle's last name. Kid was a killer. I played at Notre Dame. I never saw a kid take over, like a Steph Curry before his time. Kyle McElharney was his name. You gotta Google this kid. I want to say they were playing at Christ the King or Riverside Church, and he literally put up like 60 or 70. And he stopped. I mean, he had like 17 threes in the first half. I mean, he would unload from half court. And like when I tell you the gym stopped, and you've been in inner city gyms, and when like a player, regardless of color, grabs everybody's attention and it just next level. Kyle would literally have this thump dribble before he'd shoot where it'd be like, boom, boom, and he'd hit it. It was so fast. And when the ball hit the ground, it literally sounded like it was through the net at the same time, no matter where he was. And, Gones always was so special about finding these marquee players. And it was kind of funny. That's why I was telling you, I want to watch and learn more about what you do because I haven't had that spark in 20 years since I'm watching what you're doing now. So that's, thank you for that. I kind of lost it for a while. I get a question for you. What do you think's missing in youth basketball right now with regards to NIL, EYBL, AAU, all these different levels in basketball? Do you think it's missing, or you think it's right?
It's funny. Somebody else asked that question to one of my contributors, Serge Wiltshire, at my last tournament, and he said it perfect. I think we just need to get back to just playing basketball. Just playing basketball. Not worry about, pleasing this parent. Not worried about NIL. Personally, for me, I think it's great that the kids are getting paid to do what they're doing, but there should be a limitation on it. There should definitely be a limitation on it, especially at the college level. Because, I mean, if a kid in college is driving a brand new Mercedes, what does he have to look forward to? There's nothing to look forward to after that. Back in the day when MJ and all those other guys, they had to work hard to get to where they wanted to be. I think that takes away from the work ethic.
It's funny. I'm going to give you, I know you know so much about sports, and it's a lot of what you do in your work environment. But if you put it under the microscope, and for me, it was always looking at Duke players, right? I love that school from when Coach K was there, when I got sick, when you first met me, I just got done being paralyzed. If you look at how many guys make it that were elite in college before NIL were paid, and how many actually flop, the number, and these are, top 5 draft picks, the number is ridiculously high.
It's less than 1%.
Yeah, so I can appreciate it now because you think about how many guys, whether injury or they just couldn't make the jump to the ISOs, half-court ISOs and can't get loose or couldn't defend an NBA-level guard. Yeah. And they don't talk about it. They're just gone. They don't make it through Summer League. I like the NIL for these kids because the reality is, now, what I'm going to tell you, and you've always been one of my friends that I call to with investments and how smart you are with your money, what I think these kids do need, starting at the high school level when they are elite, is a financial education program, what to do with that money, whether they put it in a trust, where a percentage is taken from them for an LTV, a long-term or LTI, like a long-term investment portfolio, versus having that Mercedes and they got $100,000 and they spent the whole $100,000 on the car.
I agree with you. I just think that sometimes this is a good thing and a bad thing. In today's world, sometimes I think the parents get too heavily involved, and I think they should actually hire professionals to manage their kids based on interviewing them and making sure that they're the right fit for their child. Because at the end of the day, a parent can make a decision for their child, whereas morally and mentally it'll be okay, but financially it'll be completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if they have a professional helping them, just like you said, someone that is like a CFA or somebody of that nature to manage their money properly, then I 100% agree with it. But I still think that the amount of money should be capped, because we're making the college level unfair, as John Calipari said it in an interview last week.
Yeah, 100%.
And the freshmen aren't getting recruited. You know what I mean? There's no kids coming out of high school that are going to big schools right away, even though they should be, because we have men playing college basketball now.
Well, the other thing that I'm seeing as a person that's been around it for a quarter century is that part for sure, but also the parity, like for 25 years, Nova, Kansas, UConn, UNC, Duke, right? All those Power 5, whatever you want to call them, those top 25 schools. Now with NIL money, you could pull a Baylor. You could pull these schools that come out. I mean, they're wrong. You had the West, right? You had Gonzaga. You had these teams like this out West that were really good. But now with NIL money, you have teams. You're like, who are these people? Where are these guys from? You know what I mean? So, but I would say I think the big thing is I remember when basketball was coming back and the Big East was coming back, and no one wanted to go to St. John's. Nobody. They couldn't get players there. And one of my favorite coaches that I worked with throughout my high school training career was Coach Lou Piccola, who was Louis Carnesecca, Coach Carnesecca's very dear friend. And after Coach Carnesecca stopped coaching, and I mean, they tried everything. They tried to put in Chris Mullen in. They tried, it was very hard to get players there until recently. Yeah. And the one thing that I would say is that, like, when you look at it, I think there's something to be said. But I think you're right. I think they have to put a system on it to control it, almost like a lottery, like in Major League Sports. You have like a ceiling. You only have X amount of money, and you can't a cap or something like that. And then it forces the teams to spread the talent. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I believe one college does do that. I believe VCU does that. I believe they pay every single one of their players a certain amount of money for each one of their players. I believe it's in the $300,000, $400,000 range. But each one of their players receives that, not just the certain high level. That was 2 years ago I read that. I don't know if that's still active, but I mean, listen, I know kids. Listen, some of my kids now are going to school next year, and they got NIL deals, But now they're letting G League players come back and play in college. That's even crazier. That's crazy. Yeah, to me,
that's wild. I mean, to have a year's worth of experience playing in the G League or NBA, and then coming back to play against boys. Yeah, I just don't know how that is fair.
It's just not a level playing ground. I believe in NIL. I just feel like sometimes there should be a ceiling to it. It should definitely be a ceiling to it because kids can crash and burn with a lot of money in their pocket and not being directed the right way of what to do with it.
100%. It was funny. I was watching the Sebastian Telfair story.
Perfect example.
And, who knows if it was the guys around him, like an Allen Iverson situation that, suck the money out of your pocket. And you got everybody that's your friend in entourage is robbing your back pocket. You're looking one way, they're stealing money out of your ditty bag. Yeah. Well, let's talk long game. I love these. These are power packed. Usually it's about you. But I love that this whole podcast is really about them, the kids. The long game. When it's all said and done, what do you hope Owen Invitational stands for 10 years from now?
Well, I want to create kind of a legacy. Owen is obviously my last name. I want to actually put this in front of an Adidas or a New Balance or a Puma maybe, and possibly have this go national.
Meaning like state by state?
State by state, yeah. The best of the best, state by state.
What did you say, Adidas or Puma?
Yeah.
Adidas, Puma, opportunity right here. This is definitely going to go national because the bottom line is this: there's nothing like grassroots. These kids talk. It's what drives this culture. This right here could be the vehicle. Listen up.
So as what Ice Cube did with the Big Three, that was another reason why I did this too, because one of my best friends, I believe you met him also, he used to do the music for the Big Three. And I wanted to do something like that, and that was already done, so I did the 2v2. But I would like to take this national, and I have, now that the kids that were actually started this thing in my backyard, I just have a good eye for talent. And I don't want to mention names, but 4 of my kids that were in the backyard 5 years ago are nationally ranked players now. I mean, I could get. You got Mekhi White, he goes to Brewster Academy. You have Julius Avent, he's a Michigan State commit. He's going there next year. Jaden Johnson is one of the best shooters in the state, if not the country. There's so many of them. Every single one of my kids is going to college. Every single one of them. So what I really want to do is I want to bring this national. I want to get sponsorship from somebody like we just discussed. This is a passion for me. Like I said, I would give 100% of my time to this if one of those big companies came and said, hey, listen, I'm going to quit what you do every day. I'm going to give you $500,000 a year. This is what I want you to do. I want you to work 70, 80 hours a week and put all your time and effort into it. Here you go. I would say, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit with the rentals. That's it. No more of that. So it's a passion of mine. I'm going to continue to do it, and my goal is to bring it national. And with the players that I've had in it from Jersey, with those names, they're the catalysts of helping me bring it national.
I love it. One word, pride. I am so beyond proud of you and what this is and the energy you put behind it. You're always and have always been my type A friend that's committed to stuff. But this is a movement. This is something where you create a community and, being a mentor to these young men, it's so important in this day and age. So many of these kids use basketball as a way of expression and also to stay disciplined, to stay locked in, to stay out of trouble. And I remember, God, it's probably 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer. Randy Foye was still in the league. I think he was on the Clippers at the time. And I had reached out to Coach Shem from Rumson, who's dialed in across the country. He's Villanova coach, Jay Wright. Yeah. Jay Wright's buddy. And so I said, hey, Coach, can you get Jason Westerland to play with these guys? And they're like, can he go? Now, he just got National Player of the Year. And Jason was always like, let me guard Randy. Let me guard the Nova star. And Randy was, just authentic and loved playing against him because Jason was ambidextrous, super strong, and they competed. Chris Paul, the guys that would come in the gym, friends with him at the time, it was unbelievable, the talent that was at Monmouth playing in the summer. The one thing I realized watching these guys, much like the culture you created, that's brotherhood. Yeah. You're putting these kids together that they have workout buddies, they have friends, they have people they trust in a culture that you've created. And it's going to be something you're going to look back and say, hey, I did that.
Yeah. All these kids are pretty much, for the most part, all of them know each other. They all play on the same EYBL team. They all grew up together. I mean, some of them are cousins, like Ethan and Mekhi White, they're cousins. And then, of course, like I said before, I developed a platform for kids that are not so well known. And I actually did that for 2 kids this year that are just studs. Absolute studs. And I actually had them play. We did our first 5-on-5 event, and I actually picked those 2 kids out of the 100-something kids that I've had.
Was one the small guard that I love?
No. That you're talking about Micah Gordon, the one that you love. He actually didn't play it this year. He was injured. He played the year before that with Jai Hines, who's just killing it at Seton Hall right now. But yeah, we created a platform for Matthew Kennedy, and we helped out Dylan Pingree as well. Made a couple videos for him, and nobody even knew who those kids were until my tournament.
Put him on blast.
Yeah, well, who Dylan was playing against. He was playing against the 5-star who's, a high major Division I commit, and he was giving him the business. So
nice. I would say that would probably be the one player story that really hit you emotionally, right?
I mean, to be honest with you, I can't pick out one player story because there's so many of them. All these kids' stories hit me pretty hard, pretty emotionally.
Love that. One word that would describe the Owen Invitational to you, one word.
Family.
Love it.
Family. That's what it's about. It's, it's to me, we're just like a big family. And, every one of these kids, I don't hit these kids up on Instagram. I don't do that. I have every single one of these kids' cell phone numbers. And if they ever need anything and they ever want to text me, I sent a kid that's going to school in Kansas right now a foot thing for his ankle to ice his foot. It was like $8. He didn't know what to do. His ankle was this big. I said, are you icing it every night? He's like, yeah, but in the dorm it's hard. I was like, I'm going to send you this thing from Amazon. It's Dante had one for his ankle, and I sent it to him. Anything.
Probably Uncle John's recommendation.
Yeah. So anything my kids need, they could just text me, and if it's within my reach, I'll do it for them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you joining me today, brother.
Absolutely.
Guys, you heard it here. Ben Owen Invitational, it's about family. He's creating an amazing movement. We are looking for sponsors for this amazing organization. It's already spanned New Jersey. I hear people talking about it all the time, and I'm looking forward to seeing when he puts out what he's got coming out this year. But again, Ben, thank you. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me, John.
Appreciate it. Guys, we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. God bless, and we'll see you again soon.